All right, Scott, we're checking out the Bloober team's latest title, The Medium.
All right, Jack. Now, get some rest.
I need no. Yes, yes. Be good, Marianne. I love you, my child. I've loved you since the moment you walked into my life. Remember that. Always.
All right, Scott, so like I said, we got our hands on The Medium, and this is kind of a walking sim, not so much horror, but like suspense, I guess, kind of style game. And man, this one really caught me by surprise. I pretty much crushed this in a weekend. I really enjoyed this title because it's not your typical kind of horror action style game. It's very less on the action side and a lot more on the lore and story building side. What did you think?
Yes, I think you've summed that up very nicely. It is something in the vein of what we call a walking simulator, which is just a suspense-driven, first-person, normally horror kind of scenario. But this is very unique of its own. It is very all about the story and enticing you to keep on pursuing this mystery and figure out what happened to all these people and this location. And it's a lot different in the way it plays than some of the games that we're more familiar with. It is often compared to Resident Evil, and I think that's a little bit of an unfair comparison because Resident Evil is something packed with action and fights between monsters and stuff happening just as you traverse. This game is a lot more relaxed on the action aspect of it. There is still action, there is still conflict and things to defend against, but it is much more of a drawn narrative while you are walking as this character through two different worlds, mostly simultaneously. And that's the kind of big unique thing about this game, is that you are a medium. You can exist in the physical world or the spirit world, and you must use both of those to solve problems, puzzles, and progress your way through some of the obstacles that are put up in your way. And I think this one is really imaginative that way. There's several parts throughout the game where you must interact with an object to change aspects of the spirit world version of the same location. So you're opening doors or you're accessing different areas through the manipulation of these spirit items. It's really imaginative and innovative.
Really cool.
And it is really cool. It plays out very well. And it's all surrounding your kind of unspoken task as a medium to help some of these spirits on their journey to the other side. And that's where this game does get very dark. It does tackle a lot of very mature themes.
Yes.
And that is something that everybody should know going into it. This is not a game for kids. And it will reward those who stick around and really follow the pieces of the story, because it's all included in these pickups or observations of the general area. It's a very deep story behind everything.
Yeah, honestly, the way they do the collectibles in this game, I thought was very, just really intuitive. As you're exploring, you're collecting things and you're reading, and honestly, I've kept reading everything because the universe that they've created is so interesting, and it's just like you said, man, it's got this very dark hint, especially as you get further in the story. You're really like, whoa. But man, I've definitely enjoyed this title, and I think something that this game also does incredibly well is the graphics, man. Like, this is a next gen title, 100%. Unfortunately, it doesn't run 60 frames per second. It's a solid 30 I've had a couple dips, but for the most part, it runs very well. And some of these camera shots they get you in, man, it's just like, wow, this is gotta be one of the best looking games.
It is very interesting visually and graphically speaking, because it does I have to mention Resident Evil again, but it does the Resident Evil fixed camera angle style. So you get these long vistas behind the character that get really populated, or these things that change when you go from spirit world to physical world. And it has its own style kind of over everything. It's not hyper realistic, but it has this almost paintbrush effect where the detail is really there, and a lot of really dark scenes, and it's visually captivating. I think that's the way to say it, is just there's something for the eye to see almost all the time, no matter what you're doing. And that's really important because this game is primarily an exploration game. So they definitely packed it full of some entertainment for the eye as well. And that was really cool. I only have one problem with the graphical style of the game, and that is perhaps just a personal issue of mine, is that it's very dark.
It is very dark
sometimes it's really hard to navigate, especially in the spirit world, because the light source just is not there. And I think that's done purposefully. There's something happening behind the scenes with the ambience, and it accompanies the story well. But it's just physically, to get through it, it's a little difficult with how dark everything gets.
Yeah. And speaking of getting through things, this game's kind of filled with puzzles, and for the most part, they're not too difficult. You're not getting stuck. I did get stuck, I think, 3 times in this game. And to kind of add on to that, the horror side of things, it's not really a horror game. I got a good couple jumps there, but for the most part, you don't have this stress of like, oh, this thing's lurking. Like you said earlier, there are moments in this game for sure that, you know, where you do have these encounters, but for the most part, it's just you exploring this really dark, eerie world.
Thank God.
You're all right. I was so worried.
Oh, yeah. That thing almost got me. What the hell is it?
It came from shame, from helplessness, from rage.
Rage.
It's like anger, but more. Once it got out.
Alright, Scott, so we've gushed a lot about this game, and I think we should talk just briefly on the story, because since this game is very much a heavily story-driven game, we don't want to give away too much. But the way this game kind of starts you off is you are actually burying your father figure, and shortly after this, some kind of weird, mysterious stuff happens, and you get a phone call, and you are drawn to Niwa Hotel. And from there, I'm not going to really dive too much more into it, because that's where the real mystery unravels. What did you think, though, about the story?
I think the story was delivered in a really methodical way that was very, in my opinion, emphasized properly. They very deliberately withheld certain things and let you kind of learn different aspects about the characters that are involved and the location that, you know, when it all comes together, it kind of hits really properly with the ambience of your exploration and the jump scare kind of things that happen along the way. I think it was really put together properly, where the action is not the focus, but it definitely easily moves you from one section to the next, where the story is told in a very interesting way. I really enjoyed my time with this one. There's just a couple things maybe that I wish would have happened, just to make it a little bit different, some personal, points that I could have given, but this game to me is very well put together. This one is an 8.5 out of 10.
Wow, man, that's awesome. I am actually just a tiny bit lower than you. Through my 10-hour experience, I adored this game. I think that they maybe could have done a little more with the medium side of things. Like, the puzzles, they're good and you get through them, but they're not crazy and intuitive. So I'm going to have to give this one an 8, man. A unique and refreshing thriller exploration game. Masterfully blended horror and story elements make this game a standout title.
Hello? Thomas? Easy, Marianne. It's just a good old-fashioned haunted hotel.